Okay, dear students, as I have told you, the topic for the today's discussion which I have taken is exemption from GST. In GST, there are some things which are totally exempt, which are not at all taxable because of some related things, and there are some things which are taxable and considered under the orbit of GST as taxable kind of things. So today, in today's video, we will be studying about the exemption from GST and the things which are totally exempt from registration also. To know this, the first thing we should know is about exempt supplies, non-taxable supplies, and zero rated supplies. As per section 2, subsection 47 of CGST Act of 2017, it says exempted supplies means supply of any kind of goods or services which attract a nil rate of tax, right? These are those supplies on which the tax rate is negligible, or in some cases it is very much nil. So such kind of supply are exempted supply, which will be exempt from tax under section 11 or section 6 of IGST Act and includes non-taxable supplies. It is also not taxable according to IGST as per section 11 of and as per section 6 of IGST Act, and includes non-taxable supplies. So these all type of supply whatever we have discussed are exempted supply, right, which is said in section 2 subsection 47 of CGST Act of 2017. The second type of the supply are non-taxable supplies, right? The section 2 subsection 78, it says about non-taxable supplies particularly means a supply of goods or services which is not livable to tax under this act of IGST Act, right? These are those tax which are not levied tax on it, whether they are taxable or whether they are negligible amount of tax is paid, exempted, that is secondary, but these are not at all paid a tax on it. This is non-taxable supplies, right, which is said as per section 2 subsection 78 of IGST Act. The third category in this is section 16 subsection 1 of IGST Act. It says zero rated supplies. Is the zero rated supplies, it means any of the following supplies of goods and services, namely export of goods and services and supply of goods and services to SEZ developer or SEZ units, special economic zones developer or special economic zone units. If anybody is supplying any kind of goods as per section 16 subsection 1 of IGST Act, these are zero rated supply. The rate of supply will be at the rate of zero for it. Now, once you know about this, now list of persons exempted from obtaining GST registration. There are some persons who are exempted from getting GST registration or obtaining the GST registration. They are exempted. First is the persons engaged exclusively in providing business of supplying goods or services, or both, that are not that are not liable to tax are wholly exempted from tax under Central Goods and Service Tax 2017 or Integrated Goods and Service Tax. So any person who is supplying goods or services which are not liable to get registered under GST under Central Goods and Service Tax of Service Tax 2017, such kind of persons who are supplying, those persons are the persons who are not liable, or who are the persons exempted from obtaining the GST registration. These are the first persons. Second is an agriculturist, right? An agriculturist, the person who is involved in agricultural activities, that person is called as an agriculturist. However, the exemption is only to the extent of supply of product out of cultivation of land. Now, if any agriculturist is supplying anything out of the cultivation from his land, that is the exempted, that person is exempted from GST. right? He is exempted from GST. But the product what he is supplying, it should be from cultivation from land itself. But after cultivating from land, if he is processing it, if he is doing some addition to it, then those all addition, processing, packaging, etc., whatever if he is doing, those things will also come under GST now. Directly from farm, from field, from land, if you are supplying those particular agricultural products to the market or some other places, those are exempted, right? Similarly, individual advocates, including senior advocates, right? If any advocates are there, or if any senior advocates are there, the services what they are rendering, right? What the fees, sometimes what they are charged, right? Many a times they charge the senior advocates, they charge more amount of money for some particular cases. So even those persons are also they are exempted from GST. Individual sponsorship service providers, including players, right? So if any person is providing any sponsorships, right, for some events, for some functions, or for some services, right? So that sponsorship, whatever is provided for some services, including for players, right, who are playing for some particular games, right, whether it is a cricket, hockey, or whichever tournament you are playing, those whatever amount is sponsored, it is totally exempted from paying tax. The persons engaged in making an interstate supply of taxable services and having an aggregate turnover of less than 20 lakhs, right? A person who is having an aggregate turnover of less than 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs in case of special categories, right? Which is notified dated 10/2017, integrated tax dated 13th of October 2017. So those people who are dealing in particular goods and services in interstate, right, interstate, and having an aggregate turnover of less than 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs in some cases, in the specified above mentioned cases, there even those persons are also relieved from obtaining the registration. Then the persons engaged in making interstate supply of services and having a turnover of less than 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs in the case of special categories in the financial year. The repeated point it is, the persons engaged in supply of services and having an aggregate turnover of less than 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs in case of special categories, right? And this notification date has been changed. If you see the notification date, number is 65/2017. This is central tax dated 15th of November 2017. All right, the aggregate turnover has been increased to 20 lakh and 10 lakh in case of special cases. Now it is applicable for services. The earlier point which we saw was applicable for goods. Now this is applicable for services. However, above exemption is not available to a person who is engaged in supplies specified under section 5 of section 9 of this act through an e-commerce operator who is required to collect at tax at source and section 52 of this act. Now there are certain e-commerce operators who are using some commerce activities, or who are doing some online kind of activities. E-commerce operators are those e-commerce operators. They generally do tax collected at source, right? Wherever the tax is collected, wherever the collection will happen, there the tax is collected. So to such kind of electronic commerce operator, this particular point will not be applicable. The persons engaged in supply of goods and services or both, and the total tax on such supply is required to be paid by the recipient of goods or services, or both under reverse charge mechanisms, right? Where supply of the goods as well as the receipt of the goods, where the recipient is paying the tax, right? In case of the supply of goods, taxable goods or services, both total tax on supply is required to be paid by the recipient. One who is receiving the goods, he is paying the tax. Now, in that case, when recipient is paying the tax, the recipient in some cases, he is not able to, not required to do a registration, because the recipient might be anyone. He can be like some casual taxpayer. He can be a person who is not related to the Indian tax government, or he is some NRI, non-resident Indian. So he don't have to do a registration under GST. Now, what is the power to grant exemption from tax, which is said in section 11 of CGST Act of 2017? The power to grant exemption, right, from tax, which is said in exemption section 11 of CGST Act of 2017. Central or state government had, on the recommendation of the council, right, the central and the state government, on the recommendation of the council, which is said in section 11 subsection 3, right, they, central government and state government, they will discuss with the GST council, right? As the GST council has various members, there are various bodies constituted, right? With the discussion with the various members, central and state governments, based on the recommendation of the council, will classify two things. First is, on taxable goods and services of any specified description, considers it necessary, right? On taxable goods and services of any specified description, if any description is given on that particular things, whether those things are taxable goods, those things are taxable services, so what it should be, there is satisfied that is necessary in public interest. So the GST council has to look, and the government, central government and state government should recommend the GST council that whatever the things they are doing on the taxable goods and services, it should be is satisfied that is necessary in the public interest. It should be for the public interest. It should be to protect the public. It should not be done to exploit the public, right? Similarly, when it is done for the interest of the public, right, for a public interest, there it is divided in two types. First is as per section 11 subsection 1 by notification A, and second is as per section 11 subsection 2 by special order, that is B. Okay, now in notification A, first is exempt generally. The central government and the GST council, what they do is, they will exempt the people who are claiming for the exemption generally, exempted generally. Then next is absolutely not optional or subject to conditions, right? So here in that particular case, when they are exempting someone, they will see that absolutely it is a not optional, right? But it will not be neither an optional kind of thing, subject to a condition. They will put a condition directly. Exemption will not be provided by the GST council, right? It will be optional, right? And similarly, they will put some condition. Who will put? GST council. They will put an option first of all, and then they will have a condition. After having this, whole tax or part tax, right? Whole tax of the person. Suppose if he is claiming whole tax as an exemption, the government, GST council, the central government and state government will exempt the whole tax if they want. If they see the case is genuine, if he has all the record, if he is fulfilling all the legal requirement, in that case, sometimes whole tax, or it can be a part tax, right? In some cases, it may be a part tax. So this is exempted generally, notification A. In some cases, what happens? By special order, which is said in section 11 subsection 2, right? Section 11 subsection 2. Here, first of all, it will be exempt whatever law has been passed, or whatever the GST has been claimed, exemption has been claimed, that will be exempt under exceptional circumstances explicitly specified in such order. All right, but it is not allowed in a general case. Only during some exceptional cases. There are certain exceptional cases which are mentioned in section 11 subsection 2 of CGST Act of 2017. Those exceptional cases, the law will study, the council will study. If the taxpayer, if he is claiming for that exemption, which are exceptional cases in his business, which are specified in those particular section, then under those exemptions or exceptional circumstances explicitly specified in such order, then whole tax will be allowed as the exemption. Understood? Whole tax is going to be allowed as exemption. Similarly, the second point, what the council has to recommend is considers it necessary. The tax department has to consider all the things which are submitted by the persons. It as a necessary kind of thing for the purpose of clearing the scope of applicability of A or a B. Right? Either it has to be A or a B. They have to make it very clear. Clarification has to be done. The council has to clarify each and every things. Then when it is clarified, then what thing is applicable? Whether A is applicable by notification or B is applicable by the special order. That has to be seen. Now, after making it clarified by notification, insert an explanation in A or a B in case maybe within 1 year. Such clarification to have a retrospective effect, right? This is a duty of GST Council that first of all, they need to consider the request, consider the necessary kind of things which the person is claiming for the exemption. After that, for that purpose, the clarity has to be seen. The council has to clarify which kind of things will be applicable, whether the notification is applicable or order is applicable. The scope of applicability has to be seen. After knowing all those things by notification, they have to notify it, right? They have to insert an explanation. They have to tell their explanation, insert an explanation in the sense they have to clarify their explanation in A or a B as the case may be. Suppose the case is A in some taxpayers, they have to specify the case A, why the case A is there. In some taxpayer, the case B is applicable. They have to specify that to this particular taxpayer, the case B is there, why the case B is there. Some other taxpayer, case A is there again. So likewise, they have to specify both the cases. And in some other cases where A and B both are not applicable, that also they need to specify that A and B both are not applicable. So the tax council has to specify if A case is applicable by notification, that has to be specified and told. If B case by special order that is applicable, that has to be notified and told. If any of the exemption is not applicable, neither A or a B, that also need to be informed. And such clarification to have a retrospective effect, right? The clarification, if they don't do within 1 year, it will have a retrospective effect. Means automatically the person is going to get an exemption if it is not done within 1 year. So it is a bounded duty of GST Council to do the clarification within a specified period of